Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome to DSC's Campfires with Larry Weissoon, a unique blend of hunting, fishing, wildlife conservation, and the outdoor lifestyle. DSC's Campfires is brought to you by DSC, Conservation, Education, and Hunter Advocacy. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Taurus, award-winning revolvers and pistols. Stealth Vision, high-tech, precision-driven equipment for the modern hunter. Mossberg, American-built, American-strong. Vineyard Max, deer attractants created for the aroma of success, game feeders, and other innovative hunting products. Red 55 Winery, signature wines from the Emmy Award-winning country artist Miranda Lambert, owned by Rick and Beverly Lambert. Mr. Sam Cunningham, welcome to the DSC Campfire. Now, you're with the Wild Sheep Foundation, but also the Texas Bighorn Society. I understand you're the president of the Texas and also on the board of directors at Wild Sheep Foundation with my old friend, actually two old friends that we've got over there with Gray Thornton and Corey Mason.
Yes, sir. That's true.
And you live up where?
I live in Amarillo.
In Amarillo. What got you interested in sheep?
First thing was going on a sheep hunt, and you see how, always growing up and seeing pictures of them and reading all the Jack O'Connor and everything everybody else, for years and years and years have done kind of the same story, and then went on a sheep hunt, and it was just over with after that.
What was your first sheep hunt?
It was a doll sheep.
Doll sheep, of course, that was in Alaska.
Yes, sir.
Have you had the opportunity to hunt other sheep species since then?
Yes, sir. I've completed all 4 and then went and did another desert. So
Another desert?
5 total, yes, sir.
That's pretty special as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's a big one of the most proud moments of hunting it for me was finishing that off. Yes, sir.
Where were you able to take your desert bighorn? Because I was involved with the bighorn sheep program here in Texas many years ago,
Right.
and
Yeah.
the only of the sheep species that I've taken is a desert bighorn. So they're a little bit dearer to my heart, I think, than possibly some of the other.
Yep. Mine too. The desert are by far my favorite. I did the first one I did was in the southern Baja, so it was that Whimsy subspecies,
Oh, yes.
a little smaller animal, and then the other one was in Mexico, just outside of Monterey.
Just out of Monterey.
Yes, sir.
Those are so much fun down there. Like the only one that I've shot, I applied for every sheep permit that you could for many years, and finally decided that if I'm ever going to shoot a sheep, I just might as well bite the bullet, and I was able to go down into Sonora and shot just a nice representative ram when you get right down to it. But the size of the ram had nothing to do with the quality of the hunts.
Absolutely zero, yeah. It doesn't matter how big they are. It's just,
We stalked for days trying to get on a couple of really big ones, and never could cut the distance to where it was kind of reasonable shot kind of thing.
yeah, the pursuit is definitely the best part of all that.
It truly is. Tell me about the Texas Desert Bighorn as far as the organization is concerned.
We're a 501c3 organization that was started in 1981-82 with the reintroduction of the desert bighorn sheep to Texas. The state needed some help, and so they reached out to Dr. Red Duke, who was the first president of Texas Bighorn Society, and he asked him to, hey, we need help, get a group together. So he reached out to some of his like-minded friends and formed the organization with the goal of helping restore sheep in Texas. some of those original members, this is kind of a funny story. One of the original members, one of the first ones that Red Duke called was Gene Holloway. And he was on our board forever. His wife served as president. His son Linton is actually still on our board of directors. So multi-generational involvement in the sheep program. And talking to Gene a couple years ago before he passed, had a chance to sit down with him. It was at our TBS Roundup, and we were in a little coffee shop in the hotel, the little restaurant, kind of back in a corner, and was asking him about, tell me the history, kind of how
Right.
Give me some of this knowledge. And
Yes, sir.
So he kind of laughed and he said, well, the way I got involved, he said, I got a phone call one day and said, hey, I got a crazy idea and I need some help. And Gene said, I kind of laughed, said, what are we doing? He said, well, we're going to go to Arizona and get some sheep. I need your trailer. I need your truck and your trailer. We're going to load up these wild sheep and bring them back to Texas. And Gene laughed. He said, I said, well, what'd you tell him? He said, when do we leave? And so it was, Gene donated those trucks and time. And I mean, they've just been a big influence from that point forward with all of them.
Yes, sir. I knew Gene and his wife both. And then also, did you ever meet Dr. Bob Glaze?
Yes.
Bob was one of my dearest friends
really?
back when Bob was still alive. He and I were great friends and talked about sheep, and I was involved in the organization then. I've kind of gotten away from it because I'm in so many organizations that I couldn't devote the time like I felt I needed to the sheep.
We still have opening for you.
Well, and now I've gotten a little bit more time.
Good.
I think I may be coming back again.
We're going to try to monopolize that time from you, Larry.
Tell me about some of the things that y'all have done. I know that you've been very instrumental in the sheep program here in Texas in a lot of different ways, but what are some of the proudest things that you think you could say are some of our proudest things that we've done?
Increasing the membership and the outreach and the advocacy for the sheep program in Texas, that's a big thing. We've got not quite 1,000 members, and vast majority of those, probably 80-90%, are life members.
Yes, sir.
So it's people that are committed. They're in for the long haul, and very passionate people. So that's a big part. Recently, with our die-off of our sheep numbers that we've had, 4 years ago we had 1,200 sheep in Texas. 3 years ago we had 800. 2 years ago, a little less than 4. So the sheep numbers were in a pretty steep nosedive. And so we worked with Parks and Wildlife and the source herd, and this history better than I do. The source herd's at Elephant Mountain, WMA.
Right.
And the reason for the die-off in Texas is from the respiratory pathogen Mycoplasma ovi pneumonia, or MOV. It's the same as in all the west-wide sheep country, except in those other states, that disease is transmitted to the wild sheep from domestic sheep. And here in Texas, in our sheep country, there's not a whole lot of domestic production, hardly any at all.
Right.
But what's spreading the disease down there in our sheep country and killing off our bighorns is the aoudad. And so there was a recent survey from Parks and Wildlife, and they surveyed, and there are aoudad in every mountain range in Texas. And so they landed and they tested the aoudad for the presence of this mycoplasma.
Yes, sir.
And 100%
100%.
of the mountains have aoudad, and they have MOV.
That's horrible.
Yeah, the prevalence is high as 86% in one mountain range. 86%
Oh
of the
my
animals they
goodness!
tested.
I knew it was high. I didn't realize it was to the extent that it is. So there's some serious problems,
Yeah.
some serious solutions that are going to come out of all
Right,
this.
and you look at the source herd out there on Elephant Mountain, Parks and Wildlife, they patrol that pretty rigorously to keep aoudad out.
Yes, sir.
It's surrounded 360 degrees by aoudad, and probably 8 months ago or something like that, 10 aoudad got onto Elephant Mountain and they killed them, and 7 of them tested positive. So it's not a matter of if, but when it's going to happen. So we were kind of forced with, we need a back, plan B. Where's our backup? So we needed to establish a second source herd a disease-free source herd. And so Parks and Wildlife did a lot of checking and a lot of habitat assessment and found the Franklin Mountains over by El Paso, just, connected with El Paso.
Right.
And historically, that was sheep country. There
Yeah.
were sheep in there 7,500 years ago. So they did the habitat assessment and everything, and it's still great sheep habitat. And so that was chosen as the site for the second source herd, and there's no aoudad over there, which was
A blessing.
a blessing.
In many ways.
And so kind of going back to that, a proud moment was Texas Bighorn Society wrote a grant to Wild Sheep Foundation and got funded, and what Wild Sheep Foundation called one of their legacy projects.
Yes.
And so the goal was to translocate 80 healthy, disease-free sheep from Elephant Mountain and Alpine and take them to El Paso and put them in the Franklins. So, that's a huge undertaking and not a cheap endeavor at all.
No.
And so we were lucky to get that money from Wild Sheep Foundation, and we could take that money and then run it through the Pittman-Robertson federal match.
Right.
And so that turned into about $1 million infusion into the sheep program in Texas, which was big. And then in the first week of December of this year, we did that translocation, ended up capturing a total of 77 sheep. Started on a Tuesday and captured, and then kind of cut off at noon. We kept capturing, but at noon or 1, whatever it was in the afternoon, took those samples that we'd already had, put them on a private jet, and flew those to Washington State to Waddle to get testing so we could have the results the next day.
Yes, sir.
And so then Wednesday, the next day, finished catching and tested sheep and had them in a trailer overnight.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
those sheep were monitored they had a babysitter all night long with food and water and checking for stress and things like that. So the next morning when we finished that off, started those trailers towards El Paso, waiting for that phone call. If it's positive, okay, you turn around and you go back.
go back, yeah.
If not, you just carry on. So we got the call from Waddle that all those results were negative. So all those sheep were clean.
Thank goodness.
So we took them all, the 4-hour, whatever, trailer ride to El Paso, and then pulled up in the state park and turned them out. And usually those translocations, you've probably been on one before, that's about a 20-person job.
Yes, sir.
There was 120 or 130 people at this translocation.
Oh, my goodness.
Lots of cameras, lots of microphones, lots of people. And Froylan Hernandez, the sheep program lead,
Yes, sir.
he and his crew did a great job. Everybody had something to do. Everybody thought, they were involved and what they were doing was important. I mean, it was really nice.
And it is.
It was cool to see that from a volunteer standpoint.
Yes, sir.
And so you think, wow, that's big. And then when you roll up into the state park in El Paso, there's 600 or 800 people
Really?
standing there in the park just to see the release.
Yes.
So before we did all of that, TBS and Parks and Wildlife hosted 3 public outreach seminars in El Paso to invite the public. They could ask questions. They could understand fully what was going on and get, the right information. And man, it just ballooned from there. And like I said, 600 or 800 people at that release. Women, men, children. I mean, everybody was out there to see that.
That's really phenomenal. I mean, that you talk about spreading the word and getting more involvement kind of thing.
Yeah, but that was, when you ask what's something we're really proud of, that's a big one right there.
That's a little bit different from the youth that I raised at A&M that we went out to the Black Cap, and I captured, gunned a 3-year-old ram that we called Henry that went down in anaphylactic shock when I hit him, and I breathed for him for about 15 hours to keep him alive. We didn't have a whole lot of help with that thing. We moved those up to the Diablos area years ago. Gosh, this had been back in sometime in the early middle 70s, early 70s, I guess. So things have come around a long way. Those are the first 2 sheep that were moved up there. We had 2 rams that my wife and I raised there at A&M for the blue tongue research we were doing. We moved those out to the Diablos area, and they kept coming into Van Horn. because they were human as far as they were concerned. And so they would come down and they would tree the guy that was out on the street. The guys were having to jump in a car, jump on top of the truck. And eventually they catch them and they take them back up. And eventually one of those rams went to the San Antonio Zoo.
Oh, wow.
And they used it there kind of as a display kind of thing. I think they might have bred it to some other stuff. And then the other one, the bigger of those two in terms of horns, and they were huge by then. He just, one last time they took him up to the Diablos area, and he never showed up again. So maybe a lion got him or something. You know, who knows. But interesting stuff.
Kind of the happy ending to that whole story about that translocation, other than being able to establish a second disease-free herd. You know, when you capture those sheep and you test them, draw blood, do fecal samples, temperature monitoring, you know, the tonsil swab, nasal swab for MOV. All the females also got an ultrasound. And so we ended up, of the 77 sheep we moved, it was 40 ewes and 37 rams.
Really?
And of those ewes, 80-something% were pregnant. And so
fantastic.
Last month, the first picture of the first lamb in the Franklins got released.
Oh my gosh, that's phenomenal.
And now there's more lambs.
Oh yes, sir.
And of that whole translocation process, only one mortality out of the whole 77. One.
That truly is amazing and out of this world good. Thankfully, that's the case.
Yeah.
You know, you hate to lose any one of them, but moving that many sheep,
that far,
that's pretty darn. I think there might have been some divine intervention.
Yes, sir.
Or a lot of prayers being answered.
There was a lot of prayers answered for sure. Yes, sir.
Where do you see the sheep program hitting at this point? Now, we talked a little bit about the problems that we're facing with the aoudad, and that's going to take some pretty inventive solutions, I think, to remedy some of that. But to me, one of the things great about Texas is we've always found ways to handle solutions, or come up with a solution, I should say. So hopefully that'll happen. But what else is going on with sheep right now? Is there any other thing that's really they're having problems with outside of the pneumonia thing?
Right now, that's the big thing.
Yeah,
is that and trying to figure out our aoudad problem.
Yes, sir. The aoudad thing, of course, I was visiting a little bit earlier today with Gray Thornton, and we were throwing some ideas around. Some of them I'm not sure we could accomplish, but it'd be nice if it could happen.
There's a lot of things being talked about for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think will help in the immediate term is, the pork chop bill that was passed back in 93 or 98, somewhere back then.
Going back to when we could first start shooting legally out of helicopters, taking wild hogs.
Taking those feral hogs out of helicopters. This last session, aoudad got put on that list. And so beginning September 1st, I think that's when it starts. And
that should certainly help.
That'll help.
Yes, particularly in certain areas where you can hopefully go out and pretty much eliminate, maybe on 2 or 3 ranches, maybe the adjoining ranches don't get involved, but at least it'll drop that number down considerably. That will be fun. As someone who shot a lot of hogs out of helicopters, coyotes, and bobcats as a ball just many years ago, I can see that being a blast.
So that'll hopefully get some traction and take hold and help us get some of those numbers down. Another thing that we've started is Parks and Wildlife have some aoudad traps. Some big, huge traps.
Yes, sir.
You bait them with alfalfa or whatever, and they've got a camera on them and a switch, and so you can sit in your office anywhere and watch that camera.
Yes,
and when you get 40, 50 aoudad in there, you hit a button and it deploys that door and drops them, and so then you can go test and remove them and kill them, whatever you need to do with them. And so Texas Bighorn Society, we're looking at getting a couple more of those aoudad traps. Parks and Wildlife build them where they can drive to. With TBS and our history of our work projects and building things on tops of the mountains with helicopters, we've had some talks with Parks and Wildlife, and they're like, hey, we'd really like to put some of those up high.
Oh my God, yes.
And so that's on the horizon in the near future.
Yes, sir.
So we'll be able to get some more out. And then there's spin-offs from that project, thinking about getting those and lethally removing all those aoudad in the trap except for the most dominant male, and then performing a vasectomy on him and putting a collar on him and letting him out. And so now, because he's vasectomized and not castrated, he still has that drive to breed. He can still run those inferior males off, but he's not capable of breeding. And you put a collar on him, so now he's like a Judas ram. So you can trade, you take away all of his friends, well, he'll go find more, and you can go, you with that GPS collar, you go right to him.
That makes a lot of sense, too.
So the aerial gunning and the trap removal, that's kind of an immediate way to decrease the numbers. And the other thing with the vasectomizing those males, that's, years.
Yes, sir.
So we're trying a lot of different things to help with that. Yeah.
Well, it's going to take a lot of things. It's going to take money, unfortunately, among other things. Conservation costs, bottom line, no matter what the conservation is. And to me, conservation is wise use of, as opposed to, usually I tell people conservation promotes life, and there's a whole bunch of other things that promote death, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
so true.
I'm glad to see that happening. It's going to be interesting. Of course, being part of Texas Wildlife Association, we started, two other friends and I started back in 1985. I think there's some opportunities there for the Desert Bighorn Society and them to get together, because we do have a lot of landowners. We were visiting a little bit about that not too very long ago here, and I think if you can, maybe it's an education program, but people coming to realize how important it is to, if you could, eradicate maybe the aoudad in certain areas,
right,
but at least certainly get those numbers down, and not only get them down, and because of the reproductive rate, you got to keep them down.
Keep them down, yeah.
You got to keep them down.
And we work, we've got all those landowners are great partners for us, and there's a lot of them that have cameras all over their properties,
right,
and if they see an aoudad, man, they dispatch a crew to go take care of it. Even some of the landowners, the big economic incentive from aoudad or the aoudad hunts,
right,
and sure, we get that. We don't expect anybody to, hey, you need to cut out half your income for that. But even those landowners are coming around, and they're coming to Parks and Wildlife, and they're coming to TBS and saying, hey, we need help with these aoudad. They're decimating the habitat. So it's not just a disease problem, but they are really hard on the habitat.
They're hard on the habitat to a point now where it's affecting livestock.
Yes, sir. That's what's got some attention.
And I mean, of course, they were affecting the mule deer and then the little Carmen Mountain whitetail farther south, which I dearly love as well too. But to me, they were affecting everything. And all of a sudden, like you said, the livestock thing is probably what got some of those folks much more involved more quickly than anything else. But so that is a definite incentive as well too.
And so while that interest or need is there with the landowners, we're really trying to partner up extra hard with them and work and help mitigate that problem from their side too.
Sam, how can somebody learn more about the Desert Bighorn here in Texas, and how can more people become involved with the group that you have, that you're president of?
We have a website. It's texasbighornsociety.org. It's a long thing to type, but you can get on there. You can join. There's all kinds of information on there. When we have that work project you were talking about with the guzzlers,
right?
Before we put those sheep in the Franklin Mountains, March, before the December translocation, we built 2 guzzlers on mountaintops. And so we have a yearly work project. And every time we build a guzzler, we put a camera on it.
Yes, sir.
So you can get on our website and go to cameras and click it, and every guzzler has a camera on it, so you can see what all's coming in, be it mule deer or sheep or birds, or you can just see the effect that water source in the desert has on just wildlife across the board. But getting on our website would be the best way to start.
And then they can become a member, and then they can become involved. And,
yes, sir.
And even I know your field days are well attended, but I'm sure you could always use a little bit more help.
Absolutely,
on some of those.
We always can use more help. And then we have our annual banquet and fundraiser. Our auction is in June.
In June.
This year it's at Tapatio Springs, just outside, and Bernie, outside
yes,
of
sir.
San Antonio. We rotate that around because obviously we're a big state and we got members everywhere, so we try to rotate it around so it's close to you at least sometime.
But you don't have to be a member of or let me put it this way, you don't have to be a Texas citizen to be a member either, do you?
You do not. No, we've got, in Reno, we signed up a couple of guys from British Columbia.
Sam, what were those dates again for the event?
June 21st is a Saturday. That's when the big one is. We'll have on the 20th, on Friday, we'll have a little social hour that evening. And then Saturday morning, there's a golf tournament. And if you don't play golf, there's also, we sponsor a couple of different PhD students, one at Sol Ross and one at Texas Tech. And so Saturday morning, we have our research update, so they get to come in and give us their update presentations on progress in their projects. And then banquet and auction are that evening.
I suspect there's some pretty special items on those auction items too.
Yes, sir. We have a pretty good lineup this year for sure.
I kind of thought you might. Sam, thank you so very much for joining us here around the DSC campfire. Truly appreciate all the work that you're doing with the Wild Sheep Foundation and also with the Texas Bighorn. And please continue. I know that you will. And again, folks, if you get the opportunity, go to the website, learn a little bit more about the wild sheep in Texas, the Desert Bighorn, and not only learn more about it, but also get involved. Appreciate everybody being with us today. We look forward to seeing you right back here again next week. DSC's Campfires has also been brought to you by the Crown Bar in LaGrange, Texas, Texas Wildlife Association, Habit, Our Gear, Your Adventure, Double Nickel Taxidermy, and Burnham Brothers Game Calls.